How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the Colford Report post-game show as we recap the Bills' 26-11 victory as they finished the sweep over the division rival Dolphins. Tonight, I have two usual suspects joining me. First and foremost, Jeremy Turner Montgomery. JT, how's it going, man?
Good. Been a long week. I'm tired. Let's get this show on the road.
Oh yeah, it's been a real long weekend. Travis, how you doing, man?
What up? What up? Doing good. Doing good. Another Bills victory.
Another Bills victory, and also a lot to talk about regarding the Bills victory. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about how this Bills offense looked today. The Bills went into 15 consecutive halftimes in the regular season, leading at half, and today that was not the case, as it was largely a stalemate for the first half. Going into half, they were tied up 3-3. Jeremy, I want to start with you. What were your thoughts overall on today's sluggish offense in the first half and almost halfway through the third quarter as well?
I think this has been pretty indicative of a Brian Dable offense coming off a bye. It seems like every year that now, even though we're 4-0 now, 5-0, couple of bye in the Sean McDermott. Normally, right after the bye, the offense is pretty sluggish for the first two quarters of a game. In the past, I believe, if I can remember correctly. But overall, I just think that they've gotten away from doing the things that they did last year to be successful. I know Mud Dog in our chat was saying today, hey, why are we not taking underneath? Why are we not taking what the defense gives us? It seems like that this season we're trying to stretch the balls vertically a lot more than we did last year, the year before. And I think that's what's hindering us. But then it seems like once we took the underneath and we got Cole Beasley involved, we were taking whatever the defense gave us, whether it was Zach Moss, whether it was Beasley, whether it was Gabe Davis, we started moving a ball in the second half. So I think that's been the biggest problem. And I don't think it was a thing of Brian Dable overcoaching that we've said in the past. I think it was just a little rust today. We seem rusty.
Yeah, a little rusty, and like you alluded to, the Bills have looked sluggish coming out of the bye. Last year, if everybody remembers that game where the Bills offense scored nothing but field goals in New York, that was coming out of the bye as well. So you're right on point with the fact that the Bills offense sometimes is sluggish, is rusty coming out of a bye week. Travis, what were your thoughts?
Well, Jeremy pretty much touched on everything I was going to mention. The minute we started getting Cole Beasley involved, this has happened a handful of times. We were talking prior to the show, where whenever our offense seems like it's getting stuck in neutral, we have a drive or two of just a steady diet of Cole Beasley. And, once again, he was there to move the chains. I think that there was a lot of rust, but also to touch on Brian Dable, I think we went to the run on first down a little too much. For whatever reason, our offensive line, it's banged up, obviously, but we weren't getting the push. We weren't winning the battles down in the trenches. So I like how we substituted first down runs with a lot of quick pass game. And, I don't think we need to wait till the third quarter to kind of implement that stuff. Maybe work in the deep passes, the intermediate off of these short passes. Just know who you are and run with it.
Yeah, I was quite curious, and you were alluding. You kind of mentioned to our conversation before the show, and you had been alluding to the Bills getting out in their own way for their identity, if you will. Just really kind of being adamant about running the ball. And in weeks past, we've talked about how much we've wished the Bills would run the ball more on early downs, or it's just situationally, just kind of keep the defense guessing. So you just don't run out there, spread them out, and let the ball fly every play, and you're not really leaving much room for interpretation for the defense. Today, the Dolphins had a player active that wasn't active in the week 2 blowout where the Bills won 35-0, that being defensive tackle Raekwon Davis. And he proved to give the Bills matchup issues along the interior with players such as John Feliciano. And this week, Ike Bacher sliding into left guard, Feliciano playing right guard, which is a position that he has played before. We've seen him play anywhere along the interior during his career. But sliding over to the right side so Bacher can slide into the left while missing Spencer Brown, that certainly played a factor in this game because, like we were mentioning, the Bills cannot get the ball moving on the ground, and that had everything to do with the inability to establish and win the line of scrimmage. And I thought that really kind of shot any efforts for the Bills to run the ball today in the foot. And like you guys have both, or like you were mentioning, Travis, I really had wished that the Bills had caught on to that earlier in the game, but they were being adamant about it. I was okay with them sticking to the running game in the first half on early downs. I wasn't that hurt about it, but the matchups is what really, really bothered me. The matchups along the interior, because this isn't the first time we're talking about this. it seems to be every so often where the Bills have a matchup they struggle with along the interior, that tends to bite them and shoots this offense in the foot. Travis, what are your thoughts on the Bills' struggles along the interior of their offensive line thus far?
Well, yeah, I was going to interject and just say I'm not really mad with the philosophy. I think it's a good idea to be balanced, and at some point you're going to have to run the ball on early downs. It's more of the fact that we are unable to do it. It's been a weakness of ours pretty much through. Since we got rid of Shady, we haven't been a great running team, and if we know that, and we know the level of opponent, maybe we thought a little bit less of this front that Miami brought out. But, like you alluded to, just figure it out a little earlier and then, go with something that works, such as the short passing game, because we know Allen is accurate enough to manufacture those yards, whether it be those, you saw a handful of those wide receiver screens, whip routes, those floaters to the running back who flares out, just to loosen up that defense and then maybe mix in the run from there. But the problem, back to your point, the problem is that interior. We missed Spencer Brown, which shuffles the deck on the Titanic, and guys like Feliciano is considerably. I feel like he's undersized, and I'm not quite sure that what we're asking him to do, he's able to. And how many times do we see pressure getting on Allen, and there's one guy with either his hands on his hips or to completely turn around watching his man beat him? So I think a lot of the problems stem from that guard position, specifically John Feliciano.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And you look at the rushing numbers today for the Bills. Devin Singletary and Zach Moss combined for 15 carries for 47 yards for just over a 3-yard average. And more weeks than not, I mean, that isn't really that's not really what we've grown accustomed to over these last handful of weeks, where we've seen the Bills be able to run the ball, not necessarily always when they need to, but when they want to. They've been able to do what they want on the ground in the last handful of weeks. Aside from the Titans game, they were able to move the ball along the line of scrimmage. Jeremy, really, what are your thoughts coming out of this game in regards to the Bills' lack of rushing production outside of their quarterback?
I think it goes back to the same problem we've been having. We don't really have a steady RB1. We don't really have a steady philosophy or real rotation going on. Like, I mean, we've seen teams that use two different backs, and they actually have a legit rotation going, whether it's drives, whether it's certain plays, whether it's the play count, and we don't have that. I think that once again, Devin Singletary, and I know you said the average was just over 3 yards for both, but Devin's average was 4 yards per carry. He had 7 carries, 28 yards. And I think the frustrating thing for people with Devin Singletary is he's the type of back, he's going to be your chunk yardage back. He's going to be the guy that's going to get those carries every once in a while. It's going to bang out for 15, maybe bang out for 17. But then again, he may give you 3 or 4 carries that down at the line of scrimmage, maybe 1 yard, maybe 2 yards. But you have to keep giving him the ball. We continuously not do that. We continuously stop giving him the ball after about 3 carries. I don't see him again to the third quarter. Oh, here he goes. He pops up in the fourth quarter again. And like I said, for this running game to be successful, you have to use not only him, Zach Moss, you have to use Devin Singletary as well. And until we find the proper way to use Devin Singletary, it's not going to work. I don't want to hear about the trading for any other running back at the deadline. It's not going to serve any purpose to me. I don't see what we get out of trading for. And I know I've been banging the table for Marlon Mack. Why are we banging the table for Marlon Mack? I have no idea. Marlon Mack is coming off a torn ACL. I don't see why we would think that Marlon Mack would be a better running back than Devin Singletary at this point in time. But if you look at the running back spread, the rushes spread today, 8 carries for Josh Allen. I think it was 8 carries for Zach Moss. And here we go, 7 carries for Devin Singletary. This is the same crap that we did last year and the year before that we complained about. And here we are back at square one again. So until we get that fixed, this is what's going to be. Our running game's going to be this problem. And now we're having issues with the passing games at time because we can't pick up blitzes. We can't. I don't know what routes we're running, but it seems like we're trying to push the ball more vertically down the field, and that's not working. So if Josh ain't throwing for 400 yards, we're gonna have some tough days ahead, just like today was.
Yeah, and see that's not really sustainable in the NFL. And we've had similar conversations in regards to rotations, more specifically along their defensive line, where they have had struggles on the defensive line in the past. And we've talked about how the rotation has really kind of just shot themselves in the foot because nobody really gets a true rhythm or feel for the game. And I kind of really appreciate how you're allowing to explain that into the running back room, because I tend to agree. We talk about how they give the ball to the hot hand or this or that. And I really, that is what it is. There's some games where Zach Moss goes out there and he looks borderline unstoppable, but there's other games where Devin Singletary is running between the tackles and he's doing things that I just necessarily wouldn't really expect Zach Moss to be capable of. And that's really the yin and yang and the benefit of having two different style running backs, but they don't really utilize either of them to any specific order, which I do agree that really does kind of hinder the Bills' rushing attack's ability to kind of gain any ground and be able to gain any rhythm or gain any cohesion or any kind of synergy on a week-to-week basis. And that's really what good rushing attacks do. And, there was a couple weeks ago where we felt really good about the Bills' rushing attack, and we're coming out of the bye, and this offense looks sluggish. And who knows, maybe we can credit that to that they're rusty, or they weren't doing things properly. They weren't executing because they were getting beat up front quite a lot. And that doesn't really afford much opportunity for either of those running backs to get anywhere on the ground. But I will say the one thing that I did like to see today was seeing Josh Allen use his legs, because if he didn't, I really don't see how the Bills would have moved the chains. Once he started running the ball, he was able to escape from the pocket, and they were running design plays. Josh Allen was able to do what he needed to do. He was able to run through would-be tacklers or dodge tacklers and make the plays happen. And that's really what kind of brings you into what Josh Allen's able to do with the football in his hands. But you can't rely on that on a week-to-week basis for Josh Allen to give you X amount of yards in order for you to move the chains. You have that in your back pocket. That's always nice. And I'm never going to sit here and say that the Bills shouldn't run the ball with Josh Allen on occasions. They shouldn't always run the ball with Josh Allen. That's a weapon. He's a weapon with his legs. But the Bills' rushing attack, I'm really looking forward to see them get the train back on the tracks, if you will. And I'm really kind of hoping that this week isn't really indicative of what we're going to see in the future from the Bills' rushing attack. Rather, just them looking rusty and out of sync, if you will. But in regards to the Bills' passing attack, I really want Jeremy. Can you explain a little more about how you felt about the Bills' passing attack today and as of late? How did you feel about that today?
I feel the same way I felt about the running game. I feel like Brian Daboll was confused of who he wants to get involved in the game at the time. He's out of rhythm right now. He's completely out of rhythm with play calling. And I mean, we've talked about this before. We've talked about the last 2 years. Last year was the first year we saw Brian Daboll get in rhythm and stay in rhythm for a long period of time. And this year, I feel like here we are. We're getting back to 2019 Brian Daboll, where we don't know what half of football we're going to get called. We don't know what type of game we're going to get called. And that's what I feel. That's what I feel like. I feel like maybe he has too many weapons. Maybe he has so many weapons that he's overthinking it and is not understanding how to get people the ball. Like today, we had Emmanuel Sanders. He was targeted 5 times. He had 0 catches. You didn't even get the ball. If you couldn't get the ball in Emmanuel Sanders' hands. And yeah, there was a couple plays. He actually got 2 receptions they had to call back. One we accepted a penalty, one was called back on our own. I get that. But you've been having problems getting the ball in Stephon Diggs' hands this season. As an offensive coordinator, you have to be able to get the ball in your best player's hands. And 2 guys in Emmanuel Sanders and Stephon Diggs, unless they're being bracketed, which I don't believe they were today, there should never be an issue getting the ball in their hands. And once again, the rhythm is off. And just like the running game, it's going to be some tough days ahead if this doesn't change. I'm just going to put it that way.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Right now the Bills have reached a little pocket of their schedule where your opponents are somewhat lesser than the ones that you're playing in the future. And hopefully by the end of the point that they get into that, Brian Daboll finds the rhythm that he had towards the end of last season, because the Bills really need it. The Bills did lack synergy today. They lacked rhythm. They lacked sync in every aspect of the offense. Travis, what were your thoughts on the Bills' passing attack and what really needs to be better in your opinion?
Well, to answer Justin's question, Beasley had 110 yards on 10 receptions, and there was definitely ebbs and flows in the passing game, and Jeremy pretty much hit the nail on the head. I'll take the more positive angle where we did kind of figure it out, and that was with Cole Beasley. In the third quarter, we had 2 drives where it was back to back, plays, whether he's throwing the ball. I don't think he should have thrown that, but they got him involved, and maybe that had to do with the coverage outside. You can't really tell on the broadcast view. There was a couple times where we tried to get Emmanuel Sanders, and Jones, to his credit, made good plays. But I do think that it's possible to have these underneath routes include Stephon Diggs more. Why not have certain drives where you are focusing on it, whether it's him or Emmanuel Sanders? I just think that if there is some focus, like Jeremy mentioned, it just kind of seems like they're going out there and running, yards that were, or running plays that were drawn up on the back of the football, seconds earlier, where obviously that's not the case, but it just, there doesn't seem to be that identity where last year there was stretches where we did play that underneath route. And I think that's what did open up the down the field plays later on in the season.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And you kind of mentioned the trick play where Cole Beasley had attempted a pass in the end zone. And I try not to harp on the play calling too much, because that became a habit of mine where I'd look at the play calling, I'd look at the Bills' offensive production, and I look at the play calling, and I blame it directly on the play calling. And it's not always too much of anything in these kind of situations, or in these kind of evaluations, if you will. But that one Beasley play, when I had seen that play, that was really that was really a head scratcher. I didn't really know what the direction was on that, and it was guarded up pretty well. We'd seen that. I'm not necessarily saying it was the exact same play design as the ones where we've seen Beasley throw for a touchdown in the past.
I think it was. It was
the same exact play.
And if it was the same exact play, that's why it was guarded right up. And it just felt really silly to me. It felt almost boneheaded-ish. And it was weird, because you're in a position in the game where you're trying to seal it up. You're trying to put the nail in the coffin and win the game. And you're not just trusting your offense to go out there and make a play happen, or execute the play that you're calling, or Josh Allen going out there and making an improv play and making it happen and getting it in the end zone. Rather, you're calling a trick play, trying to fool them, or trying to play cute. And, I think that aspect of it, that confidence that Brian Daboll built over the however long stretch that it was, where this offense was lights out and they were doing whatever they wanted to opposing defenses, I feel like that was kind of indicative of the arrogance or the confidence where, he kind of built that up over time. And that could have been catastrophic. If 24 turns around and catches that ball, we're having a completely different conversation right now almost. And
actually, it was Zeke and Howard that you targeted there. Yeah. And he got his hands on the ball. That's the wrong person to target.
Jeez, that's just, it's just, I didn't understand it at all. And I'm sure almost Brian Flores was quite surprised to see him throw that and for that play to happen as well.
You figured if you see, he's taught probably to, if it's covered up, eat it. I don't know. It seemed forced.
It was strange to me. The whole game plan today was strange to me. And I don't think there's anybody that would watch today's game and come out feeling overly well about this Bills offense. But in the second half, they did find their footing. They did find efficiency. They were able to start converting on third downs, and they got into the red zone and they'd punch it in. And I did like the attitude of Josh Allen today. I liked the aggression. I liked the assertion. And that's really what the Bills needed from him. And that's who he needs to be on a week-to-week basis. And today, that was something that you really needed from your quarterback. But I really just wish that, sometimes it really feels like Josh Allen makes up for a lot of bad play calls. And this is a conversation that I've had with Mario Granada a lot, where if Josh Allen's making plays out of the pocket and making plays that aren't necessarily designed, is that all the credit? Does most of the credit really go to Brian Daboll in that regard, where he's breaking the pocket and he's making improv plays that aren't necessarily how they were drawn up? And through
the history of time, the credit always goes to the OC. It doesn't. Whether it was Kelly calling his plays at the line of scrimmage, the credit went to Marshall Broda. Whether it was Doug Flutie making plays, I forgot who the OC was then. The credit always goes to the offensive coordinator. Mike McCarthy was the head coach in Green Bay for how many years, and he looked like a totally different guy in Dallas and down the stretch in Green Bay. But how many years did he get the credit? You know what I mean? So yeah, it always goes back to him. It's never going to change. So yeah, you're going to have to give him credit. He's going to be a head coaching candidate, even if the rhythm doesn't change this year.
Yeah, the Bills' offense has been too good for too long. Because to sit here today and say that it was unsatisfactory, that's really kind of what we're sitting here and saying. But at the same time, it was still good enough to win. The Bills did still score 23 points in 2 quarters, which whenever you do that, you're more often than not going to win, unless you're digging yourself out of a hole or what have you. But the second half of the offense today, they were able to make adjustments and they were able to execute, which was pleasant to see. I was happy to see that, because after the first half, because in the past it's been a struggle of the Bills to make halftime adjustments and flip the switch and make plays happen in the second half after making adjustments and going out there and executing. But today that wasn't much of the case, and it was good to see that Bills were able to execute in the second half. Jeremy, how did you really feel about what the Bills were able to do in the second half? Because they were able to move the ball. It wasn't anything like the first half, which, I mean, it couldn't have been if they were going to come out of here today with a W.
Well, I think that they take what they took what the defense gave 'em. I think they started making quick passes. They got out of Josh hands. He made a couple extended plays, but nothing where he had to go too crazy with it. And they scored. And as far as the defense goes, I think that the defense played with another game where they played with a very high level of aggressiveness, which I love. The secondary play excellent, and we have to shout out those guys: Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Davis White, Levi Wallace, Teron Johnson. They had one hell of a ball game in that secondary. Devontae Parker got loose just a little bit, but that's all right. They did like I said, they did a hell of a job. But I mean, if they need to be able to carry the second half they had today, they need to carry that momentum in the next game and do it for 4 quarters, and I'll be okay. I'll be fine at that point. But right now, I'm still on the rocks a little bit. I'm still a little shaky, and I don't know why, but I just feel like something there is not clicking, and I just can't put my finger on it.
Yeah. And you hope to see once we get down to the stretch towards postseason time that these things are worked out and the Knicks or the kinks are worked out, if you will. Travis, what were your thoughts overall on the Bills' second half offense and what they were able to execute? Kind of taking what the defense was giving them and taking the dump off passes and not necessarily trying to stretch the field all often like they were in the first half. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much spoke all that we need to do about taking what the defense is giving you, kind of switching gears a little bit. I definitely think that I liked the resiliency. You saw a lot of, the culture of the Bills came out. 3-3 going in the half, that is a opportunity where a team who is 1-6 can really turn on. And we saw it today with the Jets versus the Bengals. These teams can get vulnerable, and if you let them stay in the game, bad things happen. And I think we really got back to business. Was it perfect second half? No, but you liked to see Allen get annoyed early in the first half. He sprinted off the field after taking that knee, and then obviously they didn't convert right away. But after those, I believe they went 3 and out twice. After that, it was pretty much business as usual, and you saw the Bills kind of outwill that Dolphins team on both sides of the ball. So, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it really says much because, like you mentioned, that Jets game last year, I mean, the field goal game, was that indicative to how the rest of the season was going to go? No. So I'm not worried, but that's not, you can't necessarily say that there's nothing to be upset about.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We're quite far from hitting a panic button at this point. We can all agree on that. I'm really far away from hitting a panic button, but the one thing really holding me back right now is how good that defensive line looked for the Bills today. I was really happy. Jeremy really kind of touched on how that back end played. And I think that I'm not saying all the credit goes to the front because that back end played excellent. But I kind of want to shine light on how good the Bills' defensive line played today. They looked explosive at the line of scrimmage. And where the Bills lost line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball, the Bills won it on the defensive side of the ball. Players such as, Ed Oliver and Star Lotulelei, they were doing a great job along the interior. Jeremy, can you kind of shed some light on what you felt, or how you felt about the Bills' defensive front today and what they were able to do to kind of stay into his face and really wreak havoc back there for the Dolphins quarterback?
I mean, I think they did what they were supposed to do. I mean, let's be honest. The Dolphins probably have the worst offensive line in the entirety of the NFL. And as much money as we allocate to our defensive line, I would hope that we could put pressure on a quarterback standing behind the worst offensive line in the NFL. Since we've been the number one allocated team to defensive line spending in the last 4 years, the last 4 years straight. So with that being said, yeah, I mean they did what they were supposed to do. They did their job. I mean, I don't have too much to touch on it because, like I said, the Dolphins' offensive line is putrid. And if they did anything otherwise, then I'd be hitting the panic button for that. And thank God Jerry Hughes got a sack. Congratulations, Jerry, you got a sack. Worst offensive line in the league. Been the same way for the last 7 years. Trade him.
How many pressures for one sack?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure PFF is a 99.9 grade because he got one sack finally.
That strip sack.
Yeah, that'll bump the grade up a little bit. Travis, what were your thoughts on how the Bills defense played today?
Well, yeah, we have to give our congratulations to Jerry Hughes for making a play. But Ed Oliver was fantastic. There were some times where they didn't block him, but, you know, what are you going to do? But he was explosive off the ball, especially in that first half. The one thing I want to touch on is Vernon Butler. I just don't understand. He's not even on the stat sheet. He didn't even make the stat sheet. So I'm really confused on why he gets so much play. And I don't know. Are they auditioning him to trade? I heard someone mention that, but he's a guy where you have someone like Boogie Basham, not playing. Like FAO bot. You got guys who can make a bigger impact, can get better for this unit, and yet Vernon Butler is just there. So outside of Vernon Butler, I was very happy. I thought, although the defense didn't get there all the time, they affected change regarding Tua, and ultimately you saw it at the end with that Poyer pick.
And, I don't want to just leave Vernon Butler there because he deserves a lot more than that, because I wasn't happy with Vernon Butler today at all. I was quite disappointed to see that he wasn't on the inactive list. And I went in the chat earlier and I had said, I went on Twitter and I said, I don't understand how he's on a 53, let alone the active 47, because, like you had just said, there are players on this team that can make an impact across the line of scrimmage on a play-to-play basis. Whereas, Vernon Butler, there's nothing. He's a space eater. He's not even a space eater. He's a lane opener. I feel like anytime you see Vernon Butler in run defense, you also see a coinciding lane opening up for the running back to run right through. Anytime you see Vernon Butler playing patty cake when he's trying to get a pass rush, that's just like today. There was a snap where I saw him end up on his belly when he was trying to make a pass rush move, and he went right down on his belly, chest first, and it was just I don't get it. I don't understand why he's active, and I don't know who would trade a bag of balls for this man. In all honesty, if they were auditioning him for a trade, I don't know who you'd find a deal for the man.
There's always one, man. We traded Russell Bodine. There's always one. But I mean, the biggest thing with Vernon Butler is he should have been gone off this team in the offseason. We said that, and yes, thank you, Apex. I was gonna correct Travis too. He did make this.
He was on this thing.
He had a penalty. Yes. Maybe they are auditioning. I don't know. But leave him inactive. If you don't want to activate Boogie Basham for whatever reason, if you don't want to activate FAO Bada, because FAO Bada, the last time we saw him, did not look like he was a 53-man roster type of guy.
No.
Let's be honest. Then if you know that your running game is somewhat struggling, then why not carry Breida on the roster? And say, hey, we're going to run with 4 running backs, including Tywan Jones, who's your special teams gunner. And say, hey, maybe we'll give Breida a couple carries. Maybe Breida is the hot hand. I mean, if you're going to – I'm just going to put it this way. If you're going to – and I don't want to go back to the running game, but this kind of ties into Vernon Butler. If you're going to use that roster space up for a guy who's going to do absolutely nothing, and that's what he's done. Actually, I believe there's 2 or 3 guys on that deep line do absolutely nothing that we're tying those space for in cap space. Why not just use the roster spot for a third legit running back? And if you're going to go hot hand, normally teams that go hot hand at running back, you at least have 3.
Yeah. I mean, Vernon Butler, I don't get it. I don't get why he's activated. I don't even understand why he's on the roster. I didn't think he should have made the team. I was confused as to why they only took, what was it, $500,000 out of his pocket when he took a pay cut to stay on this team. Whereas if they were to cut him, they would have saved about $4 million if they were to have cut him earlier this spring. I hate to say it, but I really don't. I feel like his Panthers affiliation really kind of plays into this. He is a Bean pick. He was a first-round pick when Bean was there. I mean, that it's hard to imagine that doesn't play into their comfort level with Vernon Butler when he goes out there. But then again, he's been inactive for a large majority of the season. You can't imagine they're very comfortable with a guy if they're not willing to send him out there. And watching his film, that's not very good either. So I don't really know what Vernon Butler offers you up front that other players that you have on this roster doesn't. But in my opinion, he doesn't offer much of anything. But the two players on the defensive side of the ball that I really kind of wanted to highlight, I thought they played an incredible game today, that being Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano. I thought Matt Milano looked as good as Matt Milano. He continues to be the best, one of the best, if not the best player on the Bills defense. And Tremaine Edmonds continues to do nothing but impress. Jeremy, can you kind of highlight to me how you felt about Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano today, how that linebacker duo did on the defensive front?
Well, I think they looked great. I think they did their job. Matt Malone is a guy who just received a nice contract this offseason, and he's earning it. And Tremaine Edmonds is playing a guy who's ready for an extension, who's earning it. Tremaine played sideline to sideline today, as he's been doing. Matt Milano played the running back out the backfoot pass. Felt like he almost killed Myles Gaskin on the one play there. But I thought both guys did well. They did their jobs. They did what they were supposed to do. They held this Miami team back when reality, if Miami gets one or two more touchdowns in this game before we get rolling, this may be a different ball game. We may be hitting the panic button after this game after taking a loss. But these guys are definitely the heart and soul of that defense. And as they go, we go as well. Because even when the D line is not playing well, if these two guys are gone, we have a really good chance of winning.
Yeah, I tend to agree. You know, those two really kind of, as you mentioned it, they are the embodiment of the Bills defense. They are in the heart and soul of the Bills defense. Travis, how did you feel about the Bills linebackers today against the Dolphins?
Well, having these two guys is basically the epitome of what you're looking for in the modern NFL linebacker. You got a big, tall, rangy guy who's now really coming into his own when it comes to gap recognition and, you know, being where he needs to be. As you notice, he's around the ball a lot more this year than he is last year. He's putting himself in position. He's reacting instead of thinking. And when he's making contact with these guys, they can feel it. There's a number of times where he brought the lumber, and, you know, Matt Milano has been playing at this high level for a long time. I thought he got stonewalled a little bit more in his pass rush the last game as well. That's about the only thing we kind of missed. I mean, he's still bringing pressure for sure, but, you know, like that like Jeremy mentioned, the Gaskins player, he destroyed him. And you know, if he can stay healthy and Tremaine Edmonds can continue to evolve as a player and really embody what it means to be a middle linebacker in today's defense, the sky's the limit. I mean, you see kind of a changing of the guards, maybe a little bit, where they become, because I believe Micah and Poyer are the leaders of the defense, but I think it's kind of like the passing of the torch as these guys really settle into their role and you know, playing at an extremely high level this year.
You know, I tend to agree with you when you say something like that in regards to how, you know, just kind of the momentum of the way things are going for the Bills defense. Because in the past, you know, that's what we would. I'm not saying that they aren't either, because Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are the best safety tandem in the league, in my opinion, and I believe you two agree with me. So it's hard to sit here and say that the Bills' best unit is changing from their pair of safeties to their pair of linebackers, but it certainly looks like that's going to be the future of this defense, lying with those two and the versatility that they add in both pass coverage and pass rush and run defense. You know, they're both playing very well-rounded football, and that's what the Bills really need from them, given the front that they have in front of them, how much money and draft picks and capital that they've invested on the defensive line. It comes to be expected for those linebackers to be able to perform, and I'm really happy to see Edmonds really come into his own. You know, there's been a lot of doubts surrounding him, whether he's going to get an extension, whether he deserves an extension, deserves a fifth-year option. He's done nothing but go out there and prove it. And Matt Milano's done nothing but go out there and prove why he was worth the extension that the Bills handed him earlier this spring. And, you know, that's nothing but points of optimism for this Bills defense. On days such as today, where the offense isn't really looking like themselves, the defense is able to go out there and perform and play to their potential and execute and be able to do what they're capable of doing. And that was certainly a bright spot of today, is to see the defense play the way that we've grown used to seeing them play this season. Any specific thoughts on the Bills special teams unit? I thought that there was one play where they pinned them down, inside the 15, where Saran Neal went and made a tackle, and they cleaned it up. I thought the special teams today was satisfactory. Would you guys agree?
Well, I mean, besides the 19-yard punt and McKenzie muffing that, I mean, thank God it was a muff and it took the trajectory it did, because that was huge. I mean, we're talking safety, potential touchdown going to us getting the ball at the 20. Outside of that, I mean, our kick coverage, our punt coverage is top of the line, top notch. But yeah, I mean, I didn't jump on the Matt Hawk hate train early, but I don't understand why there was no competition and you give this guy such a big contract when he didn't have the track record. I mean, this was his track record, where he would miss handful of kicks throughout the season, and bad. Bojorquez started that way, and I get it. Money may have been the issue, but his trajectory was way different. He was improving, and he had the leg. So I don't understand our punting situation. Hopefully, we don't need to rely on our punter very often, but that's a bean head scratcher for sure.
Jeremy?
My friend Marquette King is available. We can bring him in.
Oh, there you go.
He's available. I call him. Let me call him. Got his number. No, the special teams unit is, I've been saying it forever. They're the best special teams unit in the NFL overall. When you combine the punt coverage, the kick coverage, the kicker with Tyler Bass, who absolutely nailed that 57-yarder with ease. And I think I said this probably about a month ago, and I questioned, was he slowly becoming the best kicker in the AFC up to Justin Tucker? And I think he is. The consistency is definitely there this year. Even though people wanted to run him out of town last year, wanted to keep was our guy named Steven Hauschka, who couldn't even kick a 50-yard field goal by the time he left. Couldn't even attempt a 50-yard field goal. But it goes to show, opinions are like assholes, everybody has them. But either way, I think that this is the best special teams unit in the league. But Matt Hack is becoming the problem. But the issue with Matt Hack is not the fact that, yes, he's missing a handful of punts, right? Because I think when we made the signing, Matt Hack was one of the top punters for pinning inside the 20, if I'm correct. We just openly assumed that we will be punting if we're punting from midfield or our own 40-yard line every time we punt the ball. And that has not been the case this year. And now it's like, okay, well, we have to punt from our own 23. We have a guy with sort of a weaker leg here. Now it's becoming a problem. And you know what's going to be even more of a problem? As we get into November and December, if we're punting from the 20 and that wind's blowing back at him, I'm kind of afraid to see what the result's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was some reliance in their gunners to kind of make up for that. But, that's not always going to be the case. There's going to be shanked kicks. There's going to be kicks that, that there's things that happen on special teams that aren't to be expected. If there's any phase of the game that happens, it's most certainly special teams. And, you can't really always rely on that. And I tend to agree with you with Matt Hawk's weaker leg. And I think it's starting to hurt them, but when they had Bojo, he had too strong of a leg. He couldn't harness his power. He couldn't find that finesse to kind of coffin corner the kicks and, pin teams inside the 20. Whereas, they'd be pinned inside the 20. He set the record for the most punts pinned inside the 20, but how many of those were between the 15 and the 19, whereas 10 and back, where you really want them? And that, like you were talking about, that's kind of Matt Hawk's specialty. But, once you start punting from behind your own side of the field, that's really where it becomes problematic. And, just to kind of touch on Isaiah McKenzie, because I don't want to come off of here without talking about it. I think everybody grows a little more uneasy with McKenzie fielding kicks by the week. The more punts that he drops, and until it really bites the Bills in the ankles, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't really anticipate them elevating Marquez Stevenson to be a returner. I don't really anticipate that. I don't see where you make room on this team, really. And I don't really think that they would do that because they have faith in McKenzie. They re-signed him to return kicks and be that guy on offense to back up Cole Beasley if something were to happen in the slot. And I think he offers too much offensively to kind of afford to be able to cut him off of the team. Not saying that they use him the way, not saying he's a huge part of the offense, but he plays a part into what happens once you lose one of your top guys. And I think that is where he's more valuable in comparison to being a returner. I don't think he's a valuable return man at all. I don't value Isaiah McKenzie as a return man, regardless if he scores 3 more kick returns for a touchdown. That, you know, he has history of dropping kicks, and it's not a matter of if it's going to bite the Bills, it's a matter of when. And today, like you mentioned, Travis, that certainly could have been the case of where we saw it bite the Bills and be a game-changing play that ended up losing the game. But yeah, Andre Roberts was on the market for like 2 days, and I really kind of felt like that the Bills should have brought him in, and they didn't. He got signed to the Chargers. But Jeremy, you got something you want to say?
I disagree. Like I said, Isaiah McKenzie, he'll get us through this season. He'll have some moments. He'll have some moments. He'll have some decent moments. He'll have some moments where he's not so great at times. There may be times when he muffs the ball as well. He's not Devin Hester, and there's not many Devin Hesters out there, right? But the biggest thing with McKenzie is the reason that he is our returner is because the value he adds to the team. We can no longer tie up a roster spot for a guy who literally only returns. We cannot do that anymore. And I loved Andre Roberts. You guys know I'm a huge Andre Roberts fan. There was at least 4 games last season. If you go back to the Seahawks, the Rams, the Raiders, and there was another game in there where his return flipped the field in a key situation. And I said before the season began, I was worried if we got into a key situation, could McKenzie do that? Because a lot of people say, well, Andre Roberts is not that great. I don't know where the hell they got that from. He was an all-pro for like 3 straight years. But the key situations, can he flip the field? Well, if he can't flip the field, what we absolutely cannot have is fumble, the muffs. And even though this worked in the Bills' favor today, the muff punt, the NFL needs to change that rule. Because it happened last week in a game I was watching too, and I forgot what game it was. Maybe it was Arizona. The same thing happened. Where the returner dropped the ball, it rolled into the end zone. His team recovered, went out the end zone, and it's a touchback. They need to get rid of that rule. No way. That rule needs to be gone. Because if that was the Bills, we'd be getting the pitchforks and screaming all over Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook about it.
You think in turn they should be safeties, correct?
If it goes into the end zone, yeah, I think absolutely it should be a safety. A muff is a fumble. Yeah, we can change the word and call it something else, but essentially it's a fumble.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. Yeah, that it's a live ball, and live balls, I was kind of confused when that happened today. There was a minute where I was just like,
their interpretation is you need to have possession in order to fumble into the end zone for it to be a safety. So, I mean, the rule makes sense, but like Jeremy says, it doesn't seem very fair because, you muff a punt, just kick it through the end zone at that point. If you're one of those guys returning, just kick it through the end zone, you get a touchback.
Travis, before we get out of here, I want to get your thoughts on the Bills return man situation. Do you have any strong thoughts? Do you think that the Bills should look elsewhere, or you tend to agree with Jeremy?
I'm right there with both of you. Is that I don't really need the big playability. I'd rather have the security. We're talking about a top 5 offense in the league. I'd rather them get as many shots as possible versus a big time, once a season, 3-4 times a season type play. I like Isaiah McKenzie, and I thought he improved. But I'm right there with you. I'm not comfortable at all when I see him back there for kicks and punts. I'm not. And the trade-off is not high. The return is diminishing, in my opinion, because, he did return that one and back in, at the end of the Tennessee game. And I don't think the hold had much to do with it, but I would rather our offense get the ball with a higher guarantee where we had last year. And, if there's once in a blue moon time we flip the field, great, but I want the security.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Hopefully, I'm not going to say it's It's not a minor thing, but hopefully we don't see him drop another ball for the rest of the year, so we don't have to spend time talking about it, right? That's really what we're kind of crossing our fingers and hoping for at this point. And I tend to agree with you, Jeremy, that this team is far too deep for them to kind of dedicate a roster spot, if you will, to a pure return man or a pure kickoff specialist like we've seen them do in the past. So we can find some happy ground on that. But before we get out of here, I want to hear from both of you guys. Who's your player of the game today, Jeremy?
I'm going to go with Jordan Poyer, man. I thought Poyer had a well of a game. He was all over the place. He set the tone. Obviously, he had the interception at the end. But, this guy's a jack of all trades. He's a jack of all trades. You can put him up in a line. You put him back in coverage, and he's picking the ball off. You're blitzing him. He doesn't get enough credit for what he does. And I see nothing different in his game with Tyrann Mathieu except that Jordan Poyer puts up more numbers. You can shoot me for it if you want, but he puts up more numbers. So if the Honey Badger is an All-Pro, then Jordan Poyer should be an All-Pro times 2 because he's better, in my opinion.
I have nothing but agreeing words to say to that.
By the way, he dropped a new hoodie after the game too. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No.
Go to JordanPoyerBrand.com. He dropped the Jordan Poyer brand Big Dubs hoodie. So go cop that.
Big Dubs hoodie. That I might just have to. I think all of Bill's Mafia will have to too.
Oh yeah.
Free plugs here at the Cold Front Report. Go grab that hoodie. That's gonna be the first thing I do when I get off here. Travis, who would be your player of the game today?
Well, if Jeremy didn't mention Jordan Poyer, it'd definitely be Poyer. He had the little cherry on top of the end with the pick, but he is the best. I think he'll be in the All-Pro consideration this year. Finally, he'll finally get the due respect that he deserves. There's a stat where he's like second most in interceptions since as at safety since he's been here with like 16 or something. He's great, but I'll go with.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off, but how's the saying go in the league? You have one good year, they kind of overlook you. If you have 2 good years, then you start to get credit. But Jordan Poyer's been really good for about 5 seasons now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's been right up there for 5 years now, and I think there's a lot of credit that he's due that he has yet to get. I think we can all agree on that.
But I will give the.
Say, Chubbs, go ahead, finish.
I was just gonna say, I'll give the game ball to Josh Allen. I mean, he accounted for like I don't know all the yards through the air, and then he had 250 in the air, 55 on the ground. He pretty much put the team on his back. You love to see, you love to see it at the end of the game. It was reminiscent of throwing the ball at the guy's head when he's just pushing his face mask on the ground. And now I understand why opposing fans might not like him because he's got that little attitude when the chips are down. But he's our guy, so it's good. It's good to have him for sure.
He'll be getting a little fine from the league office for that, for definitely.
Yeah. It's all right. I think he'll be able to afford it.
I want to go back to the Poyer thing about the respect thing. I think it's horrible the fact that he hasn't been to at least a Pro Bowl, and the numbers have dictated that he should be there for at least 3 seasons. And I feel like the numbers he's put up this season is going to be the same numbers he's been putting up, and he's going to get it. He's going to get it partially now because now he's kind of a national figure for sobriety and things of that such. And now it's like, oh, Jordan Poyer exists. He's on the map. We're going to give him an All-Pro. We're going to give him a Pro Bowl. And it shouldn't have came to this.
Yep.
It shouldn't have came to this at all. And I think it's completely disgraceful that multiple years we saw old Earl Thomas have like 40 tackles and like 2 picks. And Tyrann Mathieu almost the same numbers. Get All-Pros and Pro Bowls over this cat who's been doing this for 5 years, consistently putting up 95 to 100 tackles a year. It's a joke.
I agree. Jordan Poyer has been nothing but lights out. And it's hard to say that he's really getting better because he's been so good since he's come here, but I really think he has gotten better. Every year he has gotten better. There's been some aspect of his game that I notice on a week-to-week basis that I didn't notice the season before. So I tend to agree with you that it's almost gross that the NFL and that they haven't given him the recognition and the accolades. And it's not about the accolades for these guys. It's never been about the personal recognition for any of these guys, for all 22 starters or all 53 guys on the team. But respect goes a long way. And there's players on this team who do receive national respect, more so, Josh Allen more than anybody, but players such as Stephon Diggs. And I think, as the Bills have kind of gone into the more of the national media spotlight, that they've noticed players such as Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde when they just keep doing the same things they've been doing since they've gotten here. So I tend to agree with you wholeheartedly, Jeremy. But my player of the game today is going to be Cole Beasley. 10 catches for 110 yards. He had a really good game today. And I think we all really kind of saw that value that Cole Beasley adds to this offense. And I never really kind of forgot it. Missing Dawson Knox today, that was clearly it clearly bothered this offense. There was certainly an aspect of this offense that was missing with the absence of Dawson Knox. And Cole Beasley picked it right up. He was, in moments when Josh Allen's in trouble, I feel like he always looks for one of three guys at this point. And it's 88, it's 14, or it's 11. And we've seen this ever since Cole Beasley came to Buffalo. Josh Allen always looks for him at any point where he gets into trouble or he needs a play on third down. And, Beasley showed up today. And he showed up in a big way. And the Bills were able to keep moving chains because of Cole Beasley. And he was able to do what he does on a weekly basis. But they used him today, and I was happy to see him get on the stat sheet and in a large way and kind of remind everybody what he's capable of. Not that anybody here forgot. I think Beasley, he kind of touched on the antics, if you will, and how he deactivated his Twitter and how it's kind of really just kind of refocused him. And I think that's exactly what I wanted to hear, because when I saw that he deactivated, I was like, oh, thank goodness. He'll just focus on the games, because now he's just focusing on the games. He goes out there and puts up a $110, and the Bills come out with another victory. And a lot of credit goes to Cole Beasley. So, nothing but good things from One Bills Drive about Cole Beasley, and hopefully that's just more of what's to come. Final thoughts, Travis?
I just wanted to give a shout out to the touchdown by Stephon Diggs. I thought that whole sequence was great because it was cover zero. There wasn't enough guys to block what they were sending, and Diggs got great leverage on Xavier Howard, and really kind of ate his lunch because he beat him inside. Josh knew where he was going. 3-step drop, boom, easy touchdown.
Jeremy?
Yeah, touching your final thought too, Travis, they missed that play earlier in the game. I think it was either the first or second quarter. I don't know if he was going to Sweeney or he was going to Diggs. They got the pass interference call, but they did the same thing, and I'm happy they went back to it. Final thoughts is just let's get the offensive rhythm. Let's please get Motor more involved in the offense. He's a chunk yard type of guy. He's gonna have 5 or 6 carries in a row that may be only 2-yard gain, but he's gonna pop that one. It's gonna get you 18 or 15. He's gonna have a couple of those games. We've seen it. Get him more involved. Stop taking him out the game plan. We cannot do this. Other than that, no, I thought that it was a well coached game. I didn't like the playing around with the 4th and 4 right before halftime in field position. I didn't like that. So please, let's not do that again. If you're gonna try to draw them off sides and they jump, the offensive line has to stick his arm out and grab him and get the offside penalty. If that, do not snap the ball and play around with that.
Not on 4th and 4, no.
With the minute before halftime, you don't play around with that field position. So other than that, no, I think that the Bills, they won a game. They're 5-2. We got another game versus Jacksonville. We got the Jets coming up. We need to win those next 3 games. We got one down today. We need to win those next 2. Let's get in rhythm. Let's get back to business. And before I go, I want to say that PFF grades defense ends wrong and they grade cornerbacks wrong. They grade suck.
Oh man, oh goodness, yeah. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. The Bills, I'm really excited to see them get back to business, and that's really what it's about. It's taking care of business these next couple of weeks, beating teams you're supposed to beat, and really kind of, I'm not saying fluff their record, but they're not playing Super Bowl contenders these next 2 weeks, and these are games that the Bills have to come away with W's, and hopefully will come away with W's. Before I get out of here, I want to shout out to Legends and Stars and Batavia Downs for hosting all 3 of us, including our friend Manny, for a great event this weekend at the Sports Expo. We got to talk to a lot of great Bills fans. I personally got to meet from Buff on Weck, who gave us some great T-shirts. I see Travis is rocking his Only Slam shirt, and I'm rocking the Mafia World Order shirt tonight. So great T-shirts. I love it. I love shirts like this. Highly suggest you guys go check them out. Buff on Weck, that is. And the Sports Expo is always fun. You know, we went there a couple of years ago during their February event, and that was a great time. And we were afforded the opportunity to come back this year, and hopefully for next February, as they had mentioned to us. And you know, it's never anything but fun when we go to Batavia Downs and we go see a bunch of Bills fans, get to hear how excited they are about the team. And that's really the fun in all of those things, is getting to talk to all the Bills fans, see how they feel, and really just kind of gauge the excitement from all of Bills Mafia in just one room. So it's always a lot of fun anytime we get to go to Batavia Downs. So thank you to Brian Burke and everybody involved at the Batavia Downs and the Legends and Stars Expo that they host twice a year. But yeah, other than that, you know, guys, another week of business for the Bills, another win. And hey, we'll see you guys right here at the same time, same place next week after the Bills play the Jaguars. And hey, it was a pleasure seeing you guys. Hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and go Bills.
Go Bills.